Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Skald against the Black Priory. As today we are in fact up against the Black Priory. Truth in advertising, you'll love to see it. That said, let's push on, shall we? A large gilded gong that no doubt must have served some kind of ceremonial purpose. Etched into it in fine lettering is the following text. He who wishes to pass so bold, speak the names of masters of old, and before the sleeper he beseech, shall offer up a strike for each. Oh, right, okay. You strike the gong with a mallet, and a pure, deep note reverberates throughout the complex. Oh gosh, I really should have just written the names down. Caroleth the Many-Faced? Calamar the Grey? Or maybe it was Rothrax the Grey. You strike the gong a third time, but as you utter the last name, the note sounds foul and discordant. Whatever you did, you suspect it was somehow wrong. Perhaps you should start over? You know what, that's fair. I'm just glad there are no actual consequences for getting it out of order. I think Calamar was third. Yes. You ring the gong a third time and speak the last name. The sound echoes more strongly than before throughout the catacombs, and the grinding of stones can be heard in the room ahead. Whatever you did, you suspect it was the right thing. Yes, I did them in the order I found the sarcophagi in, but that was not the order they ruled in. Look, Embla points through the passage to the north. A golden tomb! We must be close now. Finally, we shall know. Yeah, about that. I've been meaning to ask, if we actually do find the corpse of an emperor, what happens then? I do not know, but the answers will reveal themselves to us when we stand before the glorious corpse. I just pray we're not too late. Drina shakes her head. The corpse of an emperor? In a place like this? I refuse to believe it. Yeah, well, I guess we'll see. Though clearly not here, since this is obviously the false tomb, as chronicled in multiple journal entries. The golden tomb stands before you in all its glory. Have you arrived at last? At the object of your quest? I'm gonna say no. But, Embla, thoughts? It still beckons me. Though, standing here now, something feels off. Nonetheless, as I see it, there is only one way forward. We must open the tomb. Right. And, Drina? Anything you might like to add? My faith in the Golden Dead is unfailing, and it screams that something here is not as it seems. But we've come this far, and now that we stand before the tomb, I say we get to the bottom of this charade. Okay, let's see what we've got. You brace yourself and push with all your strength, but find that the lid slides back easily and locks into position with a slight click. It's as if the lid has been designed to open and close. Nonetheless, the sarcophagus's content now lies before you. You draw a collective gasp as the content is revealed. Nothing. The sarcophagus is utterly empty. Roland's laughter booms through the tomb, and you can hear Drina offer a whispered prayer of relief. Embla, somehow, looks less than surprised. Embla? A false tomb. A decoy, perhaps. Like a chest with a false bottom? I suspect the true meaning of this tomb lies deeper than we first suspected, Embla muses. There is something we've missed. Some hidden secret. Yeah, my thoughts exactly. Though I will say, I kind of figured we'd open it to find a staircase or something. So what are we missing? I notice we've got this recurring bowl motif as well, both in the carvings we've passed, but also now on this particular sarcophagi. Is there perhaps a key object we missed? Something where... Oh, okay, well... I suppose it could also just be a secret door in the corner. Which clearly takes us right into the night maze. Okay, let me grab my map here. And you know what I'd actually like to do first is check out one of those red spots. Just to verify if those are, in fact, traps. The tunnel ahead is ancient, narrow, and dark. Walking down it, you cannot help but feel as if you are descending into some deeper abyss, far more ancient than the Priory, and reluctant to give up its mysteries. Nonetheless, you also cannot help but feel as if you are once more being pulled forwards. Something awaits you at the other end of these tunnels, and it's beckoning for you to proceed. You feel it too now, don't you? Embla attempts to peer into the darkness. This is the way. The tomb chamber was never what the Priory was built to protect. There must be even older mysteries below. I suspect many of the monks themselves don't know of this. Perhaps initiates offered praise to a false tomb for centuries, while the Grandmasters kept the lie? Perhaps so. Come on, let's keep moving. Not to interrupt your theosophic ramblings, but there's something you might want to see, Farron. Kat has walked up to the edge of the light and is carefully extending her arm into the darkness. Look at this. The darkness will not yield to the light. It's as thick as tar. Some kind of ward, perhaps? I suspect we'll need to navigate these tunnels blindly. Yeah, well, that's why we've got the map. Our path takes us into peerless darkness, then. Ivan rubs his chin thoughtfully. We've survived countless horrors thus far, but I dare say we must keep our wits about us now and proceed with the utmost caution. I can think of few fates worse than being lost and waylaid in this morass of darkness. Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm sure there are much more terrible fates awaiting each and every one of us. Though, you know, I will say, being perpetually lost inside of a claustrophobic maze of darkness would definitely be pretty high on my list. With a mechanical click, the door gives way under you. Your short drop is arrested by the vicious spikes that cover the floor of the pit. Your adventure has come to an end. Okay, well, that one was for you, Ivan. And yes, that verifies the red spots are, in fact, traps. Noted. Not really sure what I was expecting, but, you know, had to check. So I guess we will, in fact, just use the instructions from Cabal Journal 3, which for the most part is just north and west. Oh, we got a glimpse of something there. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, simple enough. Which, honestly, I'm kind of grateful for. I think most of us can probably agree that that mazes are one of the most tired and unwelcome tropes of many a fantasy CRPG. The air down here is thick with the metallic smell of ozone, and a throbbing ache grows in your teeth. Each step down the narrow, winding tunnel takes you deeper and closer to... what? Oh shoot, are we... But you have come this far, and you cannot help but feel a surge of determination at being so close to the end of your search. It is so close now. The call is almost too much to bear. Embla touches her forehead and for a moment seems to sway. Embla, is something wrong? Yes, but there is but one way to cure it now. We must proceed. Embla straightens. Drina's eyes narrow. This place is not for us. The deeper we go, the further I feel we are from the golden light. We must go on. Surely we must go on. Ivan insists with an uncharacteristic intensity. Well, for better or worse, we've already come this far. We press on. After we tend to these level ups. You live to fight another day. Do we? I feel like that might be a premature statement. But I suppose we will see. And yeah, just going to kind of dump these wherever. I do think, based on Embla's reaction as we entered, as well as the throbbing in our teeth, the strange sensation in our bodies, I suspect that we are being exposed to, like, lethal levels of attunement radiation at this point. So even if we are successful, I suspect that, ultimately, we are still doomed. It does very much feel like we're setting ourselves up for your classic Pyrrhic victory. Or, just a stereotypical there are no happy endings ending. Which would fit the setting, though obviously the optimist in me hopes that's not how it all ends. But I certainly wouldn't rule it out as a possibility. I do wonder, given what we saw with Calipero's apprentices, perhaps attunement radiation is what causes people to break down into, like, the organic sludge that forms the basis for this mysterious mold, the fungi from outside, which then essentially acts as a conductor to reshape it into new forms for continued use. In Calipero's case, he used the sludge to make additional apprenti, essentially a perpetual loop of infinite attuned helpers. Also, I don't think I said anything at the time, but yeah, it's very weird they gave us spell books for tier 4 spells, considering that you get 2 free picks each time you unlock a new tier, and tier 4 only has a single capstone spell for each category. Though narratively, I do think it makes sense in light of my previous speculation about the Priory essentially being a group of early humans trying to decipher the secrets of some crashed eldritch entity, since the Forbidden Library was full of high-tier spellbooks. I think the entire purpose of the Black Priory was to translate the secrets of whatever's down here into a form both decipherable and usable by lowly humans. Like the tons of stone that press down from above, so does this chamber convey the weight of untold eons. Rows of embalmed corpses line the wall, sitting in perfect stillness, with empty sockets that stare into eternity. How long have they been here? These men and women came here to worship long before the first stone of the Empire was laid. Their corpses were already ancient when Galleon landed on Erdon's shores. They are dreaming. You turn and realize it was Kat who spoke. She looks surprised. I don't know why I said that. The thought just came to me. But they are dreaming. Sharing the sleeper's dream. Waiting for him to return to them. Where are these thoughts coming from? Can we please leave? Yeah. Let's not linger any more than we have to. Interesting. Lots of the strange fungus here. As well as evidence the excavation team cut their way through it. On approach. Which could be what triggered this whole mess. The cave expands into a vast chamber, littered by the remains of what you deem to be the final resting place of the Cabal expedition to the Black Priory. Large quantities of stone and dirt have been shifted in what appears like an attempt to excavate... what? Your eyes strain in an attempt to make sense of the structure partially protruding from the rock. Your mind reels at the thought that whatever this is, it must have been placed here thousands, nay, hundreds of thousands of years ago. What's more, despite seeing just a small segment of the structure, you feel certain that whatever is buried here is vast. We're here. We've made it. All these years, this is what was buried under the priory. This is where the sleeper awaits. Embla's voice trembles like a prisoner who senses that freedom is finally within reach. This thing, it cannot exist. It should not. Who can build something like this? Drina's voice is the closest to panic you've ever heard her. This is the very heart of madness itself, Roland whispers to himself. The sleeper awaits. And there we have it. So either a crashed ship or evidence of a subterranean civilization predating man. Both classic tropes of Lovecraftian lore. And again, signs that the expedition was less than gentle in their approach. So yeah, I think this fungus we're seeing here is, in fact, some sort of bioorganic repair or security network. Perhaps trying to repair or at least maintain the vessel or structure for all these eons. The strange construct rises menacingly above you. As you approach, the fungal growths that cling to it writhe in greedy anticipation, clawing impotently at the portal set into the structure's side. You cannot easily discern the material used in its construction, nor the hands that made it, beyond the fact that there is an aspect about it that makes you think of the artifacts that the Magi sometimes employ. Now its outer skin is pockmarked and weathered by the shifting of stone over endless millennia. For the briefest moment, you see it in your mind's eye, free of stone, moving over a landscape of jagged mountains and jungle-clad hills. Great ferns sway in the humid breeze, and in the distance you see great, singing towers. A sudden tremor shakes you out of it, this one more violent than the previous ones. Right, definitely a ship. As you reel from the quake, Embla walks past you, moving towards the portal with her hand outstretched like a sleepwalker. The air hums with energy that appears to be emanating from the portal itself. The fungal tentacles begin to thrash wildly in anticipation, The tremors return, more powerful now, and around you, stones fall from the cave's roof. Embla, stop! She does not hear you, and before you can grab her, she has touched the door. The effect is instant. Strangely shaped glyphs set into the portal begin to glow with a light so bright, it's nearly blinding. An undulating vibration that you feel in your bones rises and echoes through the cave, and for a moment it sounds as if someone or something is howling madly. Then, sudden silence. What was... Before you can finish your thought, the ground again shakes violently, knocking you to the floor. Rocks and debris explode outwards from the center of the cave, and an inhuman roar so loud it causes your ears to bleed emits from the horror that emerges into the cave. Bursting forth from the depths below, it towers above you. A squirming mass of untold millions of strands of fungal growths, animated into a gigantic mod worm horror. Tentacles thrash wildly with enough force to break rock as the abomination claws its way out of the emergence hole and towards you. Then you see it. Embedded into its roiling half-flesh are the forms and faces of men. You know with certainty that these are indeed the final members of the Cabal expedition. You stagger to your feet. The creature lumbers towards you, emitting yet another terrible scream. Your heart sinks as you set to receive the charge. From around you echoes dozens of replies, as its smaller siblings are called forth to the feast. To the last. Oh, and we've got new combat music. He thinks this might be it. The final challenge before our ultimate epilogue. Huh. Also, it does explicitly call this the Dragon's Herald, so mayhaps I was wrong as far as what this stuff actually is. Perhaps it is... Well, maybe. I mean, if we assume that dragon is another of its kind with similar technologies, then perhaps that could still be somewhat accurate. Obviously, we're still pretty hazy on a lot of the specifics, but I imagine we'll get at least a few more answers once we put this thing down and pass through yon portal. This thing does seem to be resistant to our attacks, but only a matter of time before we wear it down. Though calling in cannon fodder will certainly extend its lifespan, if just by an extra turn or two. Man, okay, so this is definitely a crashed ship. One that's been here for quite some time. The brief glimpse we caught of its flight seemed to imply a primitive world long before the Empire existed. That does give the general impression that long-term, this thing crashed, humanity stumbled across it, set to worshipping and studying it, deciphered and transcribed its secrets in the Priory above, to help form the basis, I imagine, of humanity's understanding of attunement. Hence the dream chambers, the forbidden tome section, and extensive library full of spell books. Not to mention, I suppose, by extension, the alchemy lab, the other signs of technological studies, and of course the nearby Tower of Ash, which itself had some of the most advanced magitech, or whatever you want to call it, that we've otherwise encountered in the Outer Isles. I think this ship is indeed the foundation of the Empire itself. A buried secret from before the Empire actually came to exist in its modern form. Especially given that the false tomb clearly had the same sort of statue that we also observed in the much more conventional Imperial Shrine in Harran, the masked figure seated atop a throne, which I imagine is like a command chair or similar actual functional device inside this ship. I think the thing I do wonder is the Sleeper an actual eldritch entity? Something that is indeed entombed or perhaps in stasis or otherwise hibernating on this ship? Or is it perhaps the ship's onboard systems, especially if it's using some form of biotechnology? Perhaps the ship's artificial intelligence systems or just onboard user interface were mistaken for an entity. Perhaps the masks that emperors are known for wearing are actually, or were originally, some sort of like heads-up display or virtual reality or augmented reality interface device. Sit on the throne, wear the mask. The dreaming pods we saw above could be similar interface devices, salvaged and repurposed for the monks to more easily access the ship's databases. The dragon could be an enemy, or for all we know, perhaps some sort of scavenging crew just coming here to remove or otherwise recover a crashed ship long thought lost. As I said, even as vile as many of the things we've encountered might seem, a lot of it could just be a simple side effect of their systems, their technology, bioorganic in nature, simply not recognizing humanity as anything other than local wildlife and or potential raw materials to work with. Since even this thing that we're fighting now, this Herald of the Dragon, is itself simply repurposed, locally harvested flesh. I mean, given the way that we're theorizing this stuff works, this bioorganic recycling system, perhaps that explains why Calipero burns his apprenti when they start breaking down, as opposed to simply letting them break down to the point where they potentially devolve into something else. Maybe that's what killed the monks. That, or attunement radiation, as previously speculated. Though, I mean, in retrospect, I guess if we do buy into the idea that the Order of the Crystal Eye, the monks that manned the Black Priory, if they kept the true nature of this place secret from anyone but the highest, most elite members of their order, the ones who are literally entombed down here, once they all died, the monks on the surface wouldn't necessarily know enough about this place and its true nature to really properly maintain it, or to even realize that it might be more important than any other place of Imperial worship. All we really know for certain is that this place seemingly predated the actual founding of the Empire itself. So perhaps that's where the original, actual first recorded Emperor came from. Emperor Gallian? Perhaps he was one of the last ranking monks here, who salvaged what he could once they lost access to the lower tunnels, or simply lost knowledge of what was really down there. And the Empire itself was ultimately founded on, what bits and bobs of unfinished works he could salvage. The things from the actual main library, the bits and bobs of technology and such, which would be ultimately unsustainable because they'd no longer be studying the actual source, they'd just be studying their own derivative technologies, which could, I suppose, explain the Empire's ultimate slow decline, especially since it does seem implied that they continue to jealously guard even those bits of technology from laymen, thus essentially preventing it from ever really being innovated upon. We have seen some general hints of that. Ivan's commented on it more than once. The idea that the Empire is built on technologies or sciences that they have long since lost access to. The sewers beneath Harran, the strange reticular furnace beneath the lighthouse, etc. There's some interesting underlying concepts there. It really makes me wish we had found more in the way of actual lore about the setting. Though, it does also, I suppose, simultaneously save stuff for potential future installments. Whatever happens here, I'm sure we still won't receive all the answers. Such is simply not the nature of your average Lovecraftian tale. Speaking of which. Shoot. Okay, yeah, we do have to mop up the reinforcements. Alright, fair enough. Hold on. This should just take a sec. Yeah, so I guess our biggest questions here are basically, what is the exact nature of the Sleeper? What is the exact nature of the Dragon? And what in the world can we do about it? If the Dragon is ultimately something simply coming to this world to recover or destroy the ship, then perhaps the simplest means of resolving this entire eldritch apocalyptic event is to destroy the ship ourselves or otherwise get it off planet. A process which we may or may not ultimately survive. There we go. Let's poke around one last time, then we'll usher ourselves off into whatever final destination awaits. Interesting. Herald's still marked as interactive, but as far as I can tell, there's nothing we can actually do with it. Alright, well, once more into the breach, my friends. See you on the other side. As you approach the portal, a humming once more fills the air, and strange arcane sigils light up across its metallic skin. As if reinvigorated by the resurgent energies filling the cave, the mangled piles of the fungi worm things littered around you begin to knit together and reassemble. Roland sits slumped against the wall next to you, breathing heavily. You best get that door open before those things come at us again. I don't think I can hold them for long. Clasping hands, you pull the massive brute to his feet. He winces in pain, and a cough sprays blood down his chest. Don't worry about me. Roland offers a sad smile. For the first time, you notice the stain bleeding through his tunic and armor. Surely this is no issue given the right magics? You apprehensively lift his tunic to reveal his abdomen. A large gash rimmed with necrotic skin, and worse yet, pushing out of the wound from within are thick, squirming tentacles. I think this is as far as I go. Besides, where you're heading, I suspect you won't need me. Roland, no. Tremors once more shake the cave, and before your eyes, the gigantic herald thing reknits itself together before rising up to even greater heights than before. It sways momentarily, and then lets out an ear-piercing scream. Around it, untold multitudes of fresh, minor horrors rise forth. Roland painfully gets to his feet. Roland, no, I'm not leaving you behind. Young fool. Go now. I can only buy you seconds. Roland clasps the back of your neck and pulls you in until your foreheads touch. No more words are necessary. He lifts his weapon and turns, broad-legged and defiant, to face the onslaught of slavering jaws. Roland! The soft touch of Embla's hand on your elbow snaps you out of it. Farron, we have to go. Don't let his sacrifice be for naught. And so, you go. Bye, Roland. The portal shifts, disassembling itself into its component panels like some strange flower, opening its petals to welcome the sun. Oh gosh, okay. Well, you dream of floating, of stars, a blue orb breathed in a shimmering veil. But there is more, a rift. Something seeps through like venom entering a wound, coiling, roiling, primordial. Suddenly, a scream of pain and terror cuts into your mind like an acid knife. Shocked awake, the scream echoes in your mind. Was it real or part of the dream? Stirring slowly, you find yourself lying on some kind of table. You're naked and cold, and, as far as you can tell, all alone. You stand up and find your head spinning. Even in the faint light, the vague outlines hint of proportions and dimensions not meant for men. What immortal hand could have framed such things? Perhaps the concealing darkness is a blessing to your racked senses. Yeah, we are getting some immediate H.R. Geiger vibes here. And we have indeed been stripped clean. So methinks the combat portion of our adventure has ended. Now it's simply the futility of trying to survive. Oh boy. A strange membranous substance blocks the road ahead. You suspect this may be some kind of door, though there is no opening mechanism nearby. Right, so the ship does basically run on bioorganic systems. Oh no, is that... The scene ahead of you is one of utter horror, frozen in time. The form of a man utterly unmade with a master surgeon's precision. And for what purpose? Cruelty, perhaps? No, this body was taken apart by curious hands, like a child would pick apart some clever clockwork toy to get at the secrets within. Murder to dissect. Come on. Reluctantly, you approach the mangled face of the corpse. Disassembled into its anatomical component pieces, it's nonetheless familiar to you. This is the corpse of Ivan, the man who fought so valiantly at your side through horrors untold. There was no warrior's death for him. Just pain and terror. Damn. Sorry, old friend. The corpse's eyes open wide. Impossibly, Ivan is still alive. The surgeon has taken great care to maintain the integrity of the circulatory system, and for the first time you notice that the splayed body parts are still connected by pulsating blood vessels. Eyes stare at you in wordless terror, and no doubt pain beyond measure. Okay, well, I mean, we do have a modest presence. Well, shit. Your hands shake as you contemplate what you must do. To release him, you must no doubt inflict more pain onto his tortured form. Fumbling, you reach into the open chest cavity, searching for his heart. You find it, but the feeling of it beating in your hands is enough to make you vomit. You try again, tears streaming down your face, and with much effort, you eventually manage to end his torment. Dazed, you stumble away from the horrid scene. There is nothing more for you here now. You must push ahead. Yeah. Steel thyself for the horrors yet to come. The simulacra of a humanoid form stands before you. Is this a machine imitating life, or some living thing imitating a machine? A strange, viscous liquid fills its cupped hands, as if it's offering it to you. Oh, interesting. The bowl motif. Refined biomass, perhaps? I swear, if it turns out there was some way we could have saved Ivan, I am going to be very cross. But no, I don't think. Movement catches your eye ahead. Something small and pale, crouching like a frightened animal. Your heart sinks as you see who it is. Cat. She throws herself at you and clings to you like a shivering child. They took him. They did. They made him. Who are they? What's going on? You're all right, Cat. Just talk to me. The little men. They live in the walls. I saw them take us. Stripped us down like beasts going to the butcher's cleaver. They don't sleep like he does. They stay awake so he can sleep. Shipboard systems. Who is he? The king. The navigator. He slept for so long, but they say it's time for him to wake up now. They say they're glad we came here. We did good. But I don't believe them. We should never have come. Gods walk these halls. Everything's going to be fine. We'll find the others and we'll get out of here. Cat's expression vacillates between a smile and sheer terror. The little men say we can't leave. The king must awaken before the crawling doom finds its way inside. She tilts her head slightly to one side as if hearing something. And they say it's time for me to go now. I'm next. She takes a step backwards. Cat? She holds your gaze, her smile almost apologetic, as she backs up against the wall. The strange biomechanical material convulses, and a fissure opens up. Half a dozen grotesque small hands reach out and wrap around Cat. Before you have time to react, she is pulled in, and the fissure seals shut with a disgusting smack. You are left dumbfounded and alone. Well, You know, the thought does occur, although we have not encountered them since. We did briefly meet roving packs of, like, primordial troglodytes. Proto-humans, I suppose, in the areas surrounding the Black Priory. Perhaps humanity itself in this setting descended from the biomass machines of this particular ship, refined over time into the humanity that we now recognize, at least in part. I've been dissected for better understanding of what we had become. Cat taken for similar study. The aperture on the wall is strangely mesmerizing, though at the present you have a feeling it is somehow inactive. You look over at the empty basins flanking it. Perhaps they are involved somehow? I see. So the basins are for fuel, perhaps, or maybe some sort of fluid-based data medium? Yeah, really leaning into the bioorganic nature of this place. Obviously, we're meant to go collect fluid from the statues we passed. Yep. The vessel slots into the machine creature and fills with liquid. You take it back. Perhaps this can be of some use. Yes, perhaps. What about the other statue? No, apparently not, but we'll give it another shot once we've dumped out the first basin worth. Carefully, you empty the fluid from the vessels into the basins. Seeming to move of its own volition, the fluid spreads from basin to basin, through the inset grooves, and slowly the entire room hums into life. It appears you have conjured something back to life. Okay, just had to check. The interior of the aperture appears like a churning vortex of some black, oily substance. Within it, motes of light appear, looking almost like miniature stars that are born and die within the span of moments. Images form, strange geometric shapes that combine and recombine in strange, infinite fractals. Looking around for a way to operate the strange machine, your hand passes over the liquid-filled basins. A strangely musical note can be heard. Soft at first, and then much stronger as your fingers slightly graze the surface of the liquid. Dipping your fingers into the liquids at different points produces unique notes, almost like playing an instrument. And as you do so, the images on the aperture shift. You find yourself mesmerized. The auditory and visual patterns seem utterly incomprehensible, and yet there is something there. Something stirring in the back of your mind. The longer you play with it, the more the strange sounds and images resonate with you. You begin seeing them for what they are, terms in some great cosmic equation, a language of pure logic. No longer are the notes mere sounds. With each note, a number resonates. As if sensing your dawning understanding, the great machine offers you a prompt. 011123. How do you respond? That's a basic arithmetic sequence. 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3. So 2 plus 3 is 5. The machine prompts you to enter the next number. 8? Then 13. A sonorous, polyphonic wave of equations issues forth from the aperture. Like a veil being lifted, you find that you now understand the machine's language on an instinctual level. Nice, I guess. The machine serves at your command. What's going on here? What is all this? The image is one of deep, timeless sleep, millennia passing in silence. Then, a sound. Something banging on the outer skin. Children. They have descended from the trees and multiplied. In their greed for knowledge and power, they now come to disturb us. But something else has crept in. They have torn the veil. It is here now. It claws at our skin. We are holding for now, but we grow weak. The navigator must awaken. Interesting. Okay, so the dragon is a separate hostile entity. One that poses a threat to the ship and its slumbering occupant. Though unfortunately, it doesn't look like we can actually inquire any deeper than that. Though we have at least confirmed some basic framework. This thing landed or crashed here eons ago. Pre-humanity. Eventually humans studied it, learned from it, or were perhaps seeded by it? For some inscrutable purpose? It does reference them as children, though I think the incident it's referring to with the banging on its skin is the Cabal expedition, not the original monks. I miss Cat. Though we haven't found Drina yet, or Embla, though I do suspect we'll find Drina first. She is attuned, her and Embla both, so... Oh. Well, there she is. Drina's whispered prayers echo softly throughout the strange hallway. Over and over she recites the same lines as she rocks gently, back and forth. Drina! I tried to talk to her, to make her see, but it's too late. I couldn't stop her. Who, Embla? Where is she? She is so close now. He calls to her. I really did try to stop her. Drina, what's wrong with you? But I see now. We have always come here, and we always will. Go. She will need your help before the end. She lapses back into reciting her prayer. There is nothing more to be done for her. Blind faith. A bit on the nose. But perhaps the kindest of the fates thus far. Interesting. A vast fluid reservoir. Biomass storage? Liquid supercomputer? You stand in the halls of Titans. No man was ever meant to see this. Why did you come here? It was her, wasn't it? Or was it? Did you ever really have a choice? Was there some unseen hand driving you towards this doom? Breathing fast and head reeling, your eyes fix on something utterly out of place in its mundanity. A discarded shoe. Embla. You look behind you. You sense her before you see her. A luminous phantom in the darkness. Naked and emaciated, there is nonetheless something in her bearing. Acceptance? An aura of maternal comfort? She strokes your cheek. Don't be afraid, daydreamer. We're with him now. Embla, I don't understand. What is all this? Come, look upon him. She takes you by the hand and leads you to the base of the massive throne. Stars flash before your eyes as you force yourself to look at the statue seated upon it. Or is it something more? A sleeping king? A god? Your heart begins racing. You cannot bear standing in its presence. Embla begins laughing as tears stream down her face. A tremor violently shakes the structure, and you feel more than hear. An otherworldly scream coming from somewhere outside. Embla's eyes are wide. Time is running out. I must do what I was summoned here for, and you must help me. Help you do what? I don't understand. The king must awaken before the dragon reaches him. He slept for so long, and there is so little of his essence left. He needs fresh life. The glass sarcophagus opens as Embla approaches. To your amazement, you see that the inside is molded to perfectly fit a human form. The dire implications of the device are unmistakable. No, Embla, no! This isn't how it was supposed to end. Your father sent me to save you. Don't you understand? She smiles sadly. I'm already with my father. She softly strokes your cheek. I've always come here, and you've always brought me. Time and time again we've stood here, in this place. And every time you do the right thing. That is the entirety of my universe now. Him in front, you behind. But you'll die. All things die, but I'll be with him. I wonder if I will look out from behind his eyes. Slowly and painfully, Embla hoists herself onto the rim of the sarcophagus. With much effort, she swings her legs up and lies down in the device. Her body seems to have aged years just since you entered the chamber. But now a look of utter relief washes over her face. The machine emits an oddly beautiful note. A ritual has begun, and it is time for you to play your part. As you always do. A torrent of resonant waveform logic floods into you, and the machine now awaits your command. A huge tremor once again shakes the craft. The howl that sounds this time is much more forceful. Something is about to breach the craft's outer hull. Embla's half-open eyes remain fixed on you as you feed the machine the harmony that sets the ritual in motion. The faintest trace of a smile plays across her lips. Snaking tendrils emerge from holes in the machine, seeking out the body encased within. She jolts as they plunge into her flesh. For a moment, she is quiet. Then she breaks out into violent spasms. The machine begins to whir, and the tendril plugs pulsate obscenely with peristaltic motion. It has begun. The room shakes violently, light streaming from the anti-womb into the sleeping king, as Emblem is utterly unmade. He who sat undying for eons stirs. He rises. You are but an insect at the feet of gods. All is darkness. $2997 was a year of little note for the Empire. Peace and stability reigned. With one exception. The Outer Isles were lost. The event is extensively documented. The catastrophe was wholly natural, albeit tragic. The volcano Kataban awoke after millennia of dormancy. It is written that the plume of smoke could be seen from the mainland. But there were other rumors as well. Sailors claim they saw a new star in the sky the night of Kataban's eruption. Such rumors are naught but lies. Let it be known that after much toil and hardship, Farron joins the illustrious ranks of the most holy order of the persevering blade. To be one of us is to have spat in the face of death and despair. It is to be one who forges ahead, where lesser souls stand trembling. Now, onward, to glory. And thus it ends. Wow. I've got to say, I braced myself for a pretty dark ending, and while there was definitely a note of grimness, I do feel like it was a bit more hopeful than I was really expecting. We did, in the end, ultimately save the Empire, if not necessarily the Outer Isles. It was a bit vague there. I mean, at the very least we saw, for example, Iago's ship sailing away. Perhaps they survived, perhaps they didn't. Same with the folks of Harran and the scant survivors of Fergal. I like that they left it ambiguous. They say the Outer Isles were lost, but not necessarily all the people thereof. They do indicate that there were still sailors who witnessed the event. Their crazed tales simply dismissed, as the rest of the Empire continues its slow but peaceful decline. It was also nice to see that at least some of my speculation was more or less correct. The idea that it was a ship, the idea that we were in a bit of an eldritch science fantasy scenario. An elder race that had arrived on Earth and possibly even seeded humanity itself. Which I've waffled back and forth on, but I mean the fact that that fuel chamber, that essence extraction chamber, was human-shaped does very much seem to imply that, much like many of the other systems on the ship, it was powered by a bio-organic system. Perhaps the ship was forced to land or crash on the planet aeons ago, and seeded primordial proto-humans to eventually, hopefully, propagate into a suitable fuel source. Humans capable of containing or generating the attunement energies required to reactivate the ship or its systems or its surviving crew. That might explain why, for example, the ship's onboard systems dissected Ivan and took Kat away, while Drina and Embla were effectively left to proceed to the final chamber. Both were attuned, but given her faith, Drina refused to answer the final call. It does beg the question of why Farron survived, but it could simply be that we survived because Embla willed it. She did seem to have some innate understanding of the ship's systems. In fact, now that I think about it, it was hinted at as far back as the prologue, the flashback to her father's estate when we encountered her out in the garden pool. It was implied there that she often hid near that pool, and when she walked through it, she left strange contrails, not dissimilar perhaps to the strange fluid interface that we also ultimately learned to operate. There's obviously still a lot of questions, notably amongst them the whole time loop thing. But overall, I do feel like they wrap things up pretty nicely. I mean, I don't necessarily want all the answers. I do feel like it's nice to have at least some things left up to speculation. But I do feel like at the same time we did receive enough for a satisfying conclusion to this particular tale. And again, I'll express some pleasant surprise that it wasn't quite as grimdark an ending as I suspected it might be. We did save the world, even if it, was at great personal cost. And whilst I would certainly like to have more answers, more content to explore, etc., I could say the same about pretty much any game that I've enjoyed. Generally speaking, the more I whinge about a game that I nonetheless continue to play, the more of a good sign it tends to be. Since, of course, that shows that I'm actually invested enough to care. That said, I suppose I'll leave it there. I mean, there is, of course, always more to say. The game was not without its weak points. Combat became a bit of a trivial chore the further into the game we got. The rest system was largely trivialized by the presence of the auto-heal on level-ups. I feel like we probably could have lived without that to put a bit more focus on the whole survival aspect of the game. And I do feel like, as a game so heavily steeped in Eldritch lore, there should have been some sort of mental stability or insanity system. There were a number of precautions we took, like stacking our willpower, picking up the invisibility purge spell, that just never really came in that much handy in a setting where you really would think that they would eventually play some pivotal role. But, I think what we got was pretty exceptional, especially for a low-budget indie project that apparently had, just one primary developer on it. Though, that said, much like with Solasta or any number of other low-budget indie games that I've really gotten into, I do hope that this one's successful enough that the developer behind it can move on to bigger and better things. Despite the weaknesses it may have had, I do feel like Skald definitely had its strong points. But, that's just me. And as always, I leave it to you to formulate your own opinions. If you watch this far, I'll be curious to see what you think. So, let me know what you think in the comments down below, or how your own experiences with the game may have differed from mine. And of course, while this particular tale may have come to an end, grimdark or otherwise, there's always more to explore. Plenty of other games on our plate, plenty of other projects in the queue. As with every ending, there are new beginnings to be had. So, while this may be RetconRaider, signing off for now. Wherever we end up going next, hopefully I'll see you there. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.